Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. This image shows how to get a sense of movement in a still life subject. Movement can help the narrative of the image and give impact. The trick or technique involved in capturing an image like this is of course selecting the correct shutter speed and associated settings. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay. So what I've done so far is I've built this set out of a few bits of old steel. And this piece in particular I'm just going to use as a sacrificial piece of steel that I can grind away to create the sparks. Okay, so in order to do that, what I'm going to use is this battery-powered grinder. Now, having done a couple of experiments, I've found out that actually using an abrasive disc gives more sparks and a better result than actually using a grinding wheel. But the principle is exactly the same. Okay, so that's I'm going to come back to shortly. So for capturing the image, I'm going to use this full-frame digital SLR, which has a 24-70 zoom lens attached to the front of it. The camera itself is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to see the results as we go along. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this on this tripod and we'll just roughly line up the shot. So I'll zoom that in a bit to the 70mm end and we'll focus that up. Probably about there should do it. Okay, so with that now more or less done, what I'm going to do is turn the camera on and we'll have a little look at what settings I've got on the camera at the moment. Okay, so I can see from the software here that at the moment I've got a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second, an ISO of 100 and an aperture of f8. Now they're fairly normal settings. So what I'm going to do is just grab an image with those settings just to see if I'm getting any contamination from the house lights. And as you can see from that, there's virtually no image. We've got a couple of highlights but nothing to speak of. Okay, well you might think that's a reasonable starting point, but what we actually want is to be able to create an image with the sparks from the grinding operation. So fairly obviously this will be a proper grinding operation, therefore I've put some safety goggles on as well as glasses. So what I'll do is start this up and grind a bit of the steel away and at the same time just grab an image with the shutter on the camera. Now this is quite noisy, so you will have to bear with me while I do this. Okay. Right, so let's have a little look and see what we've got. Okay, so you can see in this image that we've got some sparks here, but they're all a little dull. And each trail is relatively short. So what I'd actually like is some longer trails in there. So the way to do that is to make the shutter speed quite a bit longer. So instead of 250th of a second, let's try a 60th of a second. So with this new shutter speed set, let's just repeat that little exercise. Obviously, with a longer shutter speed, I'm going to get more influence from the house lights, but we'll just see how much influence we get. So off we go again. So in this image we can see that the streaks are getting longer and you're starting to get a bit more of an image from the house lights as well. But this is still nowhere near enough. This is not really what I want. So I'm going to need to make the shutter speed quite a lot slower. So I'm going to take it to, shall we say, 1/8 of a second. Now with those settings, we will definitely get some influence from the house lights. But we'll see how much that actually affects the image. Okay. Now this time, that's actually turned out quite well. This is the sort of thing that I want. Perhaps the streaks are a little long. I can probably afford to increase the shutter speed ever so slightly. But the other thing to notice about the image is that the rest of the set here is fairly well illuminated just with the house lights alone. In fact, just to prove that, what I will do is, without the grinder in place, I will just grab an image and show you what you get. There. You can see from that that it is fairly well illuminated on its own. So, getting back to our proper image, if you like, what I think I will do is just adjust the shutter speed from 1/8 to maybe a 15th. And with those settings, we'll give it another go. Yes, that's more like the sort of length of streak that I want from the sparks, but you're also starting to get the influence here of the aperture that I'm using. The depth of field is relatively small, and I'd like it quite a lot bigger. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is change the aperture from f8 up to an aperture of f16 will give me a bigger depth of field. But it's also a 2-stop decrease in the amount of light. So to compensate for that, I'll change the sensitivity, or ISO, from 100 to 200, which is 1 stop, and from 200 to 400, which is 2 stops. So this will now give me exactly the same exposure, but with a bigger depth of field. There, that's much better. So you can see we've got nice streaks and most of them are in focus, which is what we want. So the next thing to address would be the amount of light that I'm getting from the house lights. So what I'm going to try and do is rig a bit of a sunshade, if you like, above the whole set, just to take the direct light from the house lights off the subject. Here we are. So this is a quarter stop silk flag which I've got in this C stand, and I'm just going to make that a bit more effective at cutting out the house lights by using a piece of black cloth. So we'll just pop this on the top here, and it just gives a handy way of making a black flag. There we go. So I'll just pop that up in the air a bit. There. So we'll just see what difference that makes. I'll just grab an image. And there you go. You can see that we've got rid of most of the background illumination there. So this is what we had before. You can see the illumination in the foreground and on the background. This was the image that we captured without any of the sparks. And this is what we've got now. Okay, so now with this in place, we'll give it another go. Just see what we get. Good. That's okay from the spark point of view, but we've got no context now. Now I've effectively got rid of the background illumination. So to make up for that and to have a bit more control over that sort of illumination, what I'm going to do is use a continuous LED about here somewhere, just to illuminate the subject. There we go. So I'm using this ARRI L7, which is a mains powered LED, but you can use anything which you have to hand really. So what I'm going to do is we'll just turn that up a little. Now at the moment this is set to a standard colour temperature of 5600 Kelvin. Which is fine, but it's not going to do much for the general ambience of what I'm trying to create here. So what I'm going to do is just change the mode of operation on the light so I can pick a particular colour. So now, as I change this control, I can change the colour of the light at will. So what I think I'll go for is a fairly deep red, something like that. And just to concentrate that, I'll just change this from a flood to a spot. So just with no sparks, I'll just hold the grinder in position and we'll just see what sort of illumination we get like that. Good, that's starting to come along quite nicely. I do think this underside needs maybe a little bit more, but the rest of it's looking okay. Okay, so just to fill that in a little, what I'm going to do is use a mirror. And I'm just going to use this mirror to recycle some of the light back onto the subject again. So probably putting it in here somewhere like that. Okay, so with the mirror roughly in the right place, I'll just place the grinder in and we'll grab an image just to see what we get. There, that seems to have done the trick. So this is now all illuminated. This is what we had before, and this is what we've got now. Okay, so with all that done, now it's just time to do a proper take. So I'll put the safety glasses on, fire up the grinder, and off we go. Okay, so I've taken a small sequence there just to have some choice of image. Let's just have a little look and see what we've got. These are all looking pretty good. I do like that one. Oh yes, there we are. These are all working very well. Okay, so now with that captured, that's it for taking the picture. There's just a tiny little bit to do in Photoshop, which is what I'm going to do now. So here we are in Photoshop, and this is the image which I've decided to go forward with. It looks pretty good to me. It's got an awful lot of dynamism within it, and it's telling a bit of a story. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just make a duplicate of the file, and the way that I do that is just to go onto the layer here, and I'm just going to right click the mouse, ask for a duplicate layer, but instead of having the same document, I'll go for a new document. I will just call that Sparks. Okay, so that's now made me my new document, which is up here, and I can dispense with the camera original. Right, well there is very little to do to this image, apart from cropping it and maybe tidying it up ever so slightly. So I'll just pick a crop. Now I'm going to pick a specific ratio, because I'm using this for video. I'm using 16:9. And what I think I might do is just bring the edge in a little, just to concentrate the dynamic element of that a bit. Go. Let's click on OK. Now this spark down the bottom here is just in the wrong place really, so that just needs cleaning up ever so slightly. So again, just to give me some redundancy, just going to go for a duplicate layer. Like that. Then I can alter this one and leave the other one alone. So I just want to take this out. There's lots of different ways that you could do that. I'm just going to pick the healing brush tool, and just holding down the Alt key, I'll just pick a source, which is about here somewhere, and we'll just brush that out. I might actually get rid of this one as well. So again, I'll just pick a useful source. There. And really, I think that's all I need to do to that image. Although I might just add a small vignette. There's lots of different ways to do this. I'm just going to use an adjustment layer, and I'm just going to use a brightness and contrast adjustment layer. Just take the brightness down, the contrast down a bit, like so. And then just making sure black's selected as the foreground colour. I'll just pick a really nice brush. We'll just bring all that back in again. Like so. There we are, and that just takes those edges down ever so slightly. And there we have it. So by carefully choosing the correct shutter speed for the subject, I've managed to get good balance between the length of each spark and the overall exposure in the image. And I think that's worked rather well. Okay, well I hope you liked seeing how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and click the like button. Thank you very much for watching.